Alright, Volume 1, Federal Agency, Treasury, Financial Management, Federal Agencies. Part 3, Receivable Delinquent Debt Management, Chapter 3, Chapter 3000. Collection, non-tax, administrative, receivable, rule 3 of the Treasury, Centralized, Receivable Services, Chapter of the Chicago U.S. Department of Treasury of the Bureau of Official Services, provide the non-tax, administrative debt collection services of the Centralized Receivable Services of the Federal Agency, the Chicago Federal Agency responsible for the collection, non-tax, administrative debt of the Centralized Receivable Services. And Financial Official Services is responsible to provide non-tax administrative debt collection services to the federal agency. Section 3010 Program Background. The Centralized Receivable Services Official Service Program managed for the debt collection, debt management services for the Centralized Receivable Services provides servicing federal non-tax administrative data, debt with the point with the credit agency itself for the debt until the debt is paid and otherwise resolved or referred to the cross-servicing program further action. The Centralized Receivable Services works alongside with the existing revenue collection system, assists with the creditor agency maximum collection and accurately reconciling account data. Centralized Receive Services delinquent debts of the cross-servicing program certify the delinquent debt on behalf of the creditor agency pursuant to the Treasury Financial Manual, Volume 1, Part 3, Chapter 5000. Section 3015 Scope the provision of the Treasury Financial Manual Chapter applicable to the creditor agent for the authorized transfer of the debts of the Centralized Receivable Services per Title 31 U.S.C. Code 3711G and govern the collection of the debts that have been transferred to the Centralized Receivable Services Title 31 U.S.C. Code 3711G. Section 3020 Terms of Definition for the following terms of definition chapter of the Treasury Financial Management Glossary. The following is defined with the purpose of Treasury Financial in this chapter. Delinquent indicate that the debt has not been paid within the time frame specified by the agent. Demand letter with a demand for the payment issued for the compliance with the Title 31 CFR 9012. Invoice notification sent with the debt within form of the existence of the amount of the debt and payment agreement between the debt and official services which outline the amount paid, the dates to be paid for the other terms. Then Section 3025 Authority to collect and compromise official services of Centralized Receivable Services Federal Agency pursuant to the statutory authorities to select service collect and compromise transfer of the debts and suspend and terminate collection action thereon. See Section Title 31 U.S.C. Code 3711G. 302520 Designation Financial Agent pursuant to Title 12 of the U.S. Standard Code 90 and Title 12 of the U.S. Standard Code 265 of the other authorities. Official service designated with the Financial Institute for the Financial Agency, United States Official Service Operation Management, the Centralized Receivable Services, Section 3030 with the creditor agency role with responsibility unless otherwise provided with the APA. Creditor agency will respond with the following: with the identified with the debt of the Central Receivable Services will serve as the receivables each time of the credit agency as of the new program area to the Centralized Receivable Services. Complete Centralized Receivable Services Agency profile form each time of the creditor agency at the new program area with identified with the debt detail of how the Centralized Receivable Service those debts. Includes contact information creditor agency program area personnel. Commuting the Centralized Receivable Services financial legal operational policy requirements collection of the debt prior to the authorizing Centralized Receivable Service to collect the debt. Work with official service financial agent to establish system accounts of access to the interface necessary to securely communicate information about the debt, including information collection history, the accounting entry, and any other information reflecting collection. Providing information requires official service to assist the official services in evaluating Centralized Receivable Services, the program, including the creditor agency participation in program. Delegated official service the authority of the equal to the creditor agency, chief financial officer, or equivalent officer to allow official service to talk all appropriate action. The collector included but not limited to contacting those responsible on the party of the debt with the telephone, sending invoice collection letters, entering the payment to compromise with agreement, suspending collection action, referring delinquent debt with the cross-service Treasury offset programs, including making certification required of Treasury Financial Management, Volume 1, Part 3, Chapter 5000. Stop all collection efforts and other communications relating to the debt with after the transfer of the debt with the Centralized Receivable Services. Provide accurate, timely data regarding the debt at appropriate format methods established by the official services. Maintain all the records, possession, collection regarding the debt in accordance with the applicable laws, record of the retention schedules, respond, time to request information, including proof of the debt before the resolution of the debt dispute with official service of financial agent, personal serving the debt, support the extent possible electronic invoice collection, designate writing personnel authorized to access centralized receivable systems, abide with the requirements to access the centralized receivable services system in accordance with the centralized receivable service security access request form and rule of behavior. Continue the agency account proactive with the account in collection through the existing official service collection reporting channel with the collection of the information repository, so monthly, annual accounting reporting official service to maintain proper accounting system controls for all transactions. Provide administrative review the hearing with the data for the required for the applicable laws, regulation included but not limited to Title 5 U.S. Code 5514 and Title 31 U.S. Code 3711 E. Credit Bureau reporting Title 31 U.S. Code 3716. Title 31 U.S. Code 3720A, the Administrative Tax Fund offset with the Centralized Receivable Service that notified with the creditor agency that debtor has made such a request for the provided written determination outcome in any of the proceedings when the notifying Centralized Receivable Services there should be either continue collection permanently cease collection of the debt. Promptly, the Centralized Receivable Services learn that any of the debt becomes subject to the automatic stay of the bankruptcy proceeding of the debt. Any of the debtor received to provide any necessary authorization approval to the first service financial agent tax if the creditor agency and authorized location code information collection of the information repository, any other required system for the purpose of the management accounts of the Centralized Receivable Services. Alright, Section 30-30-20, Certified Debt. Certify it's a debt meaning that certain requirements of the creditor agency may execute the annual written agreement with an official service that include with the debt with the valid, legal, and enforceable. Creditor agency may ensure that any of the person transfer the debt with official service with the creditor agency understanding of the transfer of the debt, and he or she makes a certain with official service under penalty of the purchase that among the other things the debt is valid, legal, and enforceable. Creditor agency may ensure that the appropriate person authorized to transfer the debt and for a service with Section 30-30-30 coordination. All transfer for the credit agency show the receipts all of the collection activity communication with the debtor must refer all of the inquiry of the debt with official service the first the creditor agency determine the communication with the debtor necessary. The creditor agency will immediately inform the official service with the ensure the official service remains adequately informed with any of the subject communications. Ensure same debt with the transfer of the centralized receivable services from one more agency. The creditor agency will coordinate with any other agency have involved with incurring, establishing, collecting debt, including with the Department of Justice or agency provided with sharing services with including salary pay agencies to the creditor agency. Section 30-30-40 continued validity enforcement of the debt. Creditor agencies always remain solely responsible for the ensuring the continuing validated enforcing of the debt. Section 30-30-50 the assistant of the responding debitor responding to the federal FOIA Federal Information Act. Freedom of Information Act notified with the service of the update with the debt of the debtor. Creditor agents must comply with official service with litigation result with official service with collection efforts with the impact with the government debt collecting authority with the creditor agents may also assist official service with defending a litigation resulting official service with the agency collection efforts in addition with regarding official service with efforts with the collection debt through the information litigation and creditors agency must upon request official service to provide the supporting document live witnesses and other litigation support. Credit agencies must reply within 10 business days that any of the request for official service information regarding the transfer of the debt with the debtors include with the request information needed to respond with the dispute with the receiver of the debtors and others. Sure with the approval of the compromise of the agreement, the creditor did not delegate full compromise authority with official service. The copies of the signed promissory notes, copy of citations, notification fines, and penalties, copy of the initial demand file letters, and establishing debt with the copies of the due profit notice, information needed to respond, inquiry resulting government collection efforts, and civil inquiries, Congress, and inspect with the general requesters of the Federal Information Freedom of Information Act or Privacy Act, and supporting documentation request official service. The credit agency must provide official service updated information received with the debt with the debtor in time. The manner included updated address, taxpayer, identification number to respond with the dispute with the reviews and the hearings, the request with official service otherwise required by law with the other information needed to collect debt. Section 303050A of the maintain records. The creditor agency may maintain timely, accurate debit records, including updated information for the debtor. Information debt balance for the creditor agency will remain with the owner of the debt throughout the debt collection process. Per subsection 303520 with the modified records of the official service with the property update with the or modified with the debt, and the debt records will inform the obtainment of the skip tracing asset location services. Credit agency must notify the official services immediately if it learns of any such update with the modification such records are incorrect. Section 303060 canceling transfer of debt. The credit agency may cancel the transfer of debt if the debtor has filed bankruptcy. Automatic stays in effect. When the debt is not enforceable, the debt is not available, it has been paid in full. But the credit agency discovers any other reason why the rendered certification individual upon cancellation of the debt in accordance with the section of the return of the debt, the financial official services in accordance with the subsection 303540 return transfer of the debt, but the credit agency must serve collection when the compromise of the debt must suspend the terminate collection action on the debt. If the prior of the cancellation official serve the debtor has entered in the payment agreement remains unbriefed, the creditor agency must abide with the terms of the payment agreement of their cancellation. If the creditor agency determines the termination collection action authorized appropriate, it should be considered whether offset with the Title 31 U.S. Code 3716 might be still appropriate. The creditor agency trained for the previously returned for the collection and handle bad debitors back for the official service with the servicing and appropriate creditor agency may not cancel debt already with the central receivable services. The cross-servicing program may be recalled with the debt and the permit with the Treasury Financial Manual Volume 1, Part 5000. Alright, Section 3035, official service responsibility, otherwise with the APA, official service responsible for filing the data, directing, control all actions of the official service financial agent, employed with the contractors, all inspected servicing the debt, complying with the laws and policies governing the management of the debt, provided by the creditor agency, authorized personnel with the centralized receivable service systems. But other accredited agency person with official service with the official agent contacts who will be able to respond with the resolve of the questions issued with the central receivable services. Take any of the following collection actions with the creditor agency behalf: send invoice, demand letter, due process letter, the single letter, the multi letters, contact debit, the telephone, perform skip the trade with the purchase, credit reports, and or respond with the debtor inquiries, request the extra for the due process rights, respect with the debt, but include with the negating compromise the payment agreement, providing copies of the record with the relating to debt and or explanations of why the debt is over, notify the creditor agency the debt is disputed with the validated legal enforcement of the debt, provide creditors agency for the staff of the reports all key with the application form of the centralized receivable services such as sufficient detailed reports. Credit agency reconcile with the records of centralized receivable services case balances, refer eligible delinquent debt with the cross-servicing, and notify the creditor agency for debt with the centralized receivable service to see the collection, provide with the reason of the centralized receivable service the decision to see the collection. Section 3035, 10, the maintain update record the first official service may be available to credit agency sufficient information. Credit agency update with the record with the maintain accurate with the data balance information reconcile with the data information from the run staff with the reports with all the collection activities as appropriate. The official service will provide with the credit agency with respect access to the other relevant information regarding transfer of debt. Section 303520, modified records official services appropriate update with the modified with the debt with the data records of the information obtained with the skip of the tracing with the assistant the asset location service information included among other things contact information of the debtor including mailing address, physical address, phone number, email address with the alternate debtor names included with the alternative spelling, maidens names, married names, nicknames, and other areas, taxpayers identification number, and employer information. 303530 respond to dispute with the inquiry. Official service financial they responds to the appropriate debitor inquiries received with the official service servicing the debt pursuant with the APA necessary with the official service will consult with the creditor agency to assist the respond if the debtor and someone on the debtor's behalf dispute with the validity enforcement of the debt with the official service may the appropriate submit with the dispute with the credit agency resolution. If the creditor agency determines they must communicate directly with the third party with the matter with the official service servicing debt thereafter the official service provide information necessary with the creditor of the agency to respond to inquiries. Such inquiries made with the Congress and Inspector General with the Freedom of Information Act or Privacy Act with the other relevant party officials with the will assist the credit agency defending litigation result of the government collection efforts. Section 303540 return transfer of debt official may return the debt with the credit agency for any of the reason listed in 303550. 303550 suspended terminate collection agency action. Official services suspend the receipt of the collection of the action of the own initiative or request of the credit agency if the appropriate upon the return of the transfer of the debt with a principal balance of $500,000 or less. Official service recommend the termination of the collection agency action. The official service request of the debt with a principal balance of $500,000 or less, and otherwise official service will be deemed to have the appropriate have the authority to approve the termination of the collect activity if the debt is returned any of the following reasons. Federal law precludes the collection action of the DMS to determine if the debtor has completely inability to pay, but any of the debtor is dissolved in accordance with the state law of the credit agency that is responsible whether the appropriate termination collection is the action. Official service does not have the authority to recommend the termination of the debt collection. It returns the debt any of the reason the debt is filed with the bankruptcy protection. That is to decrease. The debt is to see if the credit agency to reevaluate and fulfill the prerequisite the creditor agency fail to comply with the central receivable services rules of providing necessary information. In this circumstance, the creditor agency remains responsible for the collecting debt and complying with the applicable rule of the suspending termination collection action when the debt is appropriate. Section 3040, fees and costs. Official service currently does not charge creditors or agencies for the services provided with the Central Receivable Service Program. And you contact the Debt Management Bureau of the Official Service Department of Treasury, 3201 Pennsylvania Drive, Building E, Landover, Maryland, 20785 2028 745 And that was Volume 1, Part 3, Chapter 3000, Collecting Nontax Administrative Receivable through the Treasury Centralized Receivable Services.